Okay. Shall we get started? Hopefully we'll get, there's Sarah and Jonathan come in. Okay. Thank you, Lucienne. Let's get started then, shall we? Morning, everyone. Volunteered to be vice chair, or was voted in last meeting, and now I'm chairing this meeting, so that happened pretty swiftly. Brian is unable to attend today, and Lucienne, do we have any other apologies other than Brian? Okay. Let's get started then. We've got 2 sets of minutes to review from the last couple of meetings. If we could, first of all, if I could ask for any accuracy items on the minutes for the 11th of October. Everyone happy with those? Any comments on any of the items on the minutes of the 11th of October as well? I've got a couple of questions. Okay, just a couple from me. Then there was one where colleagues were urged to make an effort to approach governors with relevant expertise to join Schools Forum. Lucienne, have we had anybody come forward? Have we had any? Okay. If we could continue to try and search for some governance representatives at Schools Forum, that would be great. We also had a note about members of the Early Years Task and Finish group were not present and would be contacted to confirm their participation outside of the meeting. That was if they were happy to continue with the Early Years Task and Finish group. Have we had that confirmation from them?
I haven't heard anything differently, so I'm assuming the same lovely people are still being the same Task and Finish group going forward for early years.
Okay,
I think we will.
Yeah. It's all going to be very exciting.
Good news, thank you. And then the other item on those minutes, High Needs Task and Finish group, we said will be set up for November to be work on next year's budget. That hasn't happened. Have we got any tentative date for that?
No, it'd be in the new year now, but yeah, we do need to set that up. Yeah, apologies, that's not been done yet.
So we'll wait to hear from you sometime in January then for that one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So if we take those minutes with those few items on there, then we move on to the meeting of the 6th of November. So that was the extraordinary meeting we held to discuss the 0.5% transfer. Any items of accuracy on those minutes? Very short, so hopefully all correct. And any comments from anyone on those minutes? No, lovely. We'll take those as a correct record of the meeting then. Just before we move on, the next item, any declarations of interest from anyone? Thank you. Let's go straight into item 15 then, which I think probably the first of a few, Catherine, for you. The revenue monitoring report. As I was making notes against each item, I thought Catherine against quite a few of them. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Deborah. Right, let me share my screen. Right, so it's just a small adverse movement this month's report, 382,000. So we did report 12.1 million deficit. In the last meeting, it's now 12.5. The variances are due to in the schools block, we've taken more of the reserves for growth funds, so that we've that looks like it's an overspending year, but we're using the reserves that we've already got. So that's part of it. There's also we've been looking at maternity for the de-delegated paper later on, and schools that have gone to academy, they obviously don't then draw on that fund anymore, so that we've reduced the forecast on that. Contingency still the same, still got that 55,000 that no one's drawn down on yet, so we're still holding that in reserves for next year. For the rest of this year. Growth funds, as I said, there was a 120k movement, and we've updated all of our, we'll talk about it later in the next paper, but we've updated our estimate for growth fund requirements for next year. So we think we're going to need to take about 1.6 million from the schools block funding to cover all the growth for next year, but that's still being worked on because there's still schools, I think, that are going to be expanding next year that we're going to be needing the growth fund for, but that'll be all decided before the January meeting. High needs block wise, we're kind of getting a bit steadier, I think, but stabilizing our forecast by we're doing so much work behind the scenes to try and make sure we capture everything. We've said their health funding remains a key challenge, which it is. So part of safety valve for trying to across the board get correct income from health to cover all those more complex cases and children that are in independent or maintained special schools. So that's a bit of a risk, but that's our biggest challenge, is to try and get that, make sure we get that income in. Early years block, there's a slight variance just because they changed the early years pupil premium grant mid-year, which I don't think they've done before, but that was just like a 6k reduction there. I said in here we're waiting for our rates. They literally came through the end of last week. So the rates for next year are actually, I've just got a bit of an update. So for 3 and 4 year olds, our rate is going up to £6. This is an illustrative rate. It's going up to £6.31, sorry. And the 2-year-old rate is going up to £9.05, and the under 2, so 9 months to 2 months, 2 years, is going up to is going to be £12.27. So that's a brand new rate that we've got to model in. That's going to start in September. So lots of work to be doing with that. We've got we'll set meetings up in January with the early years task and finish group to go through all the modelling that we're going to be doing over Christmas and into January to share with the early years task and finish group. So exciting times ahead there. We hope to give out, actually, on that note, is to give out some sort of a range of values to send out to settings, because I know they're going to be desperate to know what their rates are going to be next year, and they don't normally get finalised until March. So we wanted to sort of say you're going to get a range, but it'll be at least between this and that range, so that people can start to at least plan for their income for their settings. Provider reserve fund, we've set aside 173k, and we're not going to report any variance yet, so we'll just see what happens at the end of the year. And we still have the 50k in the hardship fund that we kept from last year to see if anyone needed that. Still no call on that yet, but it's still there if anyone needs it. And central school services block, no variance at this time. Any questions?
Thank you, Catherine. Can I just ask one question on that high needs block? Did you say it seems to be stabilising a bit in terms of the increase? The
forecast, yeah, fingers crossed. Yes. So okay. we've been looking at all the new plans that are coming on board, and including those, and all the ceased plans that are happening in the year as well. So everything that we think that's coming through in the pipeline as well. Emma, did you want to?
Yeah, I just want to say, Deborah, so the forecast is stabilising because we're becoming more intelligent in our analysis and our data. That doesn't mean EHC plan numbers are stabilising the same way. So it's that we're stabilising what we expect the outturn to be for the year, not the number of EHC plans and the cost of those plans. That is still obviously working through a challenge, and continues to be a challenge, but there is lots of good work and initiatives starting to come online, so we are hoping to see that start to stabilise. But what Catherine is saying isn't that, it's about the forecast. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Thank you for the clarification. Sarah?
Yes, it's great to see that the council's got an initiative to unlock the funding block from health. That's really fantastic. I just wondered how you were collecting the evidence for that. I haven't been asked to give anything, but I know that I provide an awful lot of things in my school that health probably should be providing. And also we provide rooms for them, for the therapists and the school nurses. So I just wondered, and that wouldn't be then on an EHCP for you to gather that evidence. So just wondered how you were gathering that information.
Commissioning that are doing it, isn't it, Emma? I think that are gathering all that information.
So there is a piece of work happening from commissioning, and if it's a council-wide initiative, it's not just related to children's. We don't get the funding we should get from health as a council. It's still at that much higher level of achieving some of those bigger buckets, but certainly I will add it and communicate with commissioning that there are more costs that are sitting out in the schools that we haven't got that far yet. This is the beginning of a bigger discussion, And we're going for those bigger buckets first with those conversations with health, and then it will filter down. And we need to be much more considered and get a better process in with health, so that we're actually not going back and saying, actually, we need this. Actually, it's all done a lot more upfront as part of the whole process.
Great,
Ming, I think you've got something to add, have you?
Yeah, then really just to back what you said, Emma. Yes, our commission is doing a whole piece of work. Although at a very high level, we are having conversation with health ICB board, integrate health board system. To answer Sarah's question, we also look at each individual child's need, what proportion of need are actually health related. And then when we have conversation with health, we will. We already started this piece of work, but we have the conversation based on the evidence we collected. In terms of children's need, how many other? I think in Wokingham, in the past, we have not had such a conversation with them based on evidence. It's the main evidence is children's need. What proportion of them are health related, and then on that, health did make contribution. So that's the conversation ongoing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine, just one thing from me. I'm sure the early years settings will be much appreciated, and early information on that to help their budget setting next year. Any information earlier is obviously very good, particularly in terms of any staffing issues they may have.
Yeah, thanks.
Any further questions for Catherine or Emma on the revenue monitoring report? Can we move on to items?
One small thing, Deborah. Sorry.
Yep,
Darren.
go ahead.
So just on the appendix for the growth fund, Pigott took 46, not 45. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If you could just change that, and that's the same for next year as well. Thank you.
Okay. So here, okay.
Thank you, Darren. So item 16, the management plan safety valve update. I think that's over to you, Jonathan.
Good morning, everyone. Just really quite a summary report at this stage. As you've already heard from finance, we are currently in the process of submitting our third termly report to the DfE, and we've had some initial meetings with the DfE advisor. Now, whilst there is still some slippage in the finances, as you've heard, that's proportionally a relatively small amount. The early signs are we're getting fairly positive early signs in terms of impact of the safety valve programme in terms of levels of requests for assessment. They're certainly stabilising. They're at a lower level than they were this time last year and have been now for several months. There was a massive spike in March, but since March they've been at a lower level, and we think that's beginning to stabilise. We're seeing a greater proportion of school-based requests being approved, but a lower level of, we still get a high proportion of parental requests. So those are actually, more of those are being refused at this stage, which obviously is causing ripples in the parent community, and you may well be hearing that in school. But we think those are the right decisions. But we're turning the tanker, and it is undoubtedly causing some friction out in the community. We recognise that, and we're dealing with our communication to parents we're trying to enhance that and step things up in terms of communication with parents, because I'm sure you're hearing from parents in school about that. But broadly speaking, we think at this stage, we didn't expect the financial position to be massively impacted as yet, because there's so much work to do to turn the tank around. But the early signs of progress are beginning to be positive. We're seeing some green shoots, and I think certainly the team is feeling fairly confident and optimistic that we are beginning to head in the right direction. And certainly the feedback from our DfE advisor on safety valve has echoed that. There are quite a number of other authorities that are not receiving they're having difficulties in terms of receiving their ongoing payments. They're struggling to meet the targets, and we're not. He said we're relatively performing relatively well compared to many of our other safety valve benchmark comparators, other authorities in a similar position. In terms of I'm thinking of levels of detail. I was going to keep it fairly summary today because I think that those are the headlines. In terms of detail, I don't know whether we have just launched a revised SEND strategy that will come out to sort of certain key members for dialogue and discussion for that first draft. We'll be consulting on that in the new year, but at the moment we're doing that sort of last round of dialogue with key partners around what's in our SEND strategy. I don't think there'll be any surprises in there because it's largely the headlines and the priorities of those we've been talking about with you for some months now, but we're trying to capture that in a document that will cover the next few years, and that's now kind of out, been just initially released to some members. Some members of Forum will have seen that based on their membership of other forums. I think there will, just a note for next time, there will be a report back coming here on slight changes to our what was the exceptional needs funding package that schools will have an agreed annual budget that goes to an exceptional needs funding panel. That's been rebranded the inclusion panel. That we are proposing some changes that we're still in discussion and dialogue with the group itself, and we will bring those changes here next time. But we're not. I just thought it'd be good to alert you that there are certain slight changes in that how that funding is administered and how it works. We're in discussion with Andy Hinchcliffe, the chair of that group, and we'll bring that back here once we've kind of negotiated an agreed position on that. But that's en route here for the next meeting. I don't know that I was going to go into any more detail than that. I mean, I guess broadly speaking, in terms of broad headlines around the programme, we've appointed an area SENCO. The area SENCO starts in January. We're seeing progress on the two new free schools. We're still optimistic that the start opening date of 2026 is achievable. It's tight, but it's achievable. In terms of our resource bases, we've got a good level of interest, and we're now in the process of selecting and notifying schools that have approached us to develop resource bases in the coming year or two. There's progress in our early years strategy, so that there's sort of refining and sharpening the targets. I know one of the issues raised by many schools was around readiness for school and so on. So that's now there's a lot of work going on in the early years team to enhance and sort of sharpen up the focus on our early years strategy. And our commissioning, I think commissioning is going well. We have seen we are seeing pressure in terms of price of places in the independent sector. There are some real double-digit requests for inflationary increases, and that has created pressure on our budgets. But we are managing that fairly tightly, and we think we're achieving holding steady on some of those inflationary requests. And I think broadly speaking, that's. I'm welcome to take any questions. I think that's probably broadly the headlines are all I was going to cover today. I think if that's adequate for Forum's needs.
Any questions for Jonathan? Jonathan, you said at the beginning that you've had looking at some of the EHCPs or some of the parental requests, and you said there might be some ripples. Have you had any direct feedback from parents or people?
Yes, we're in frequent, constant dialogue with the Parent Carer Forum. We know there's pressure in terms of requests for mediation, and on our tribunals there's also we're seeing a spike in requests for tribunal, which is not something we want to see. But we are changing our policies and changing our approach, and almost inevitably, I think, whereas in the past things were ushered through without necessarily much challenge, now there's a rather more scrutiny being applied, and that inevitably is causing some ripples. We think we need to improve our communication with the wider parent community, because I think perhaps that could be improved and enhanced. We're working on a communications plan to make sure communication's more time, and with schools too, that communication's more timely. You know, communication was a key issue in terms of feedback we received. So we think we will be able to turn that curve, but certainly at the moment we are, probably as expected, seeing some ripples, and I would imagine schools are hearing some of the impact of that from the parent community. But as I say, it's largely around parental confidence is an issue nationally. We think increasing the messages around what else will be available for children below EHC level is going to be the key message that's going to reassure parents that their children's needs can be met in school without necessarily the need for an EHC plan. And with the increase in provision we're making, we think that will begin to be more visible over the next few months, and hoping to sort of carry the parent community with us. I think broadly people are in support, but obviously people are anxious about that change.
And have we got that information in schools? So if the parents are contacting the schools directly and saying, I'm not getting any help from the local authority, that sort of other levels of support below EHCPs, are schools that are able to communicate that, or is it for them just to point them directly back to you?
No, I mean, I'd say schools largely can probably address many of those concerns through either what's available on the local offer. We're making major improvements to the local offer, so a lot of that information about what's ordinarily available will be easier for people to access. But certainly, as part of that communication plan, point taken. We'll make sure schools are also armed with the same information, the same messages, so they can sort of share, help us, assist us in sort of communicating the changes that are happening and why they're happening.
Yeah, just so we can all signpost correctly to all of that information as well.
Yeah, no, a point well made. Yes, understood. And we, as I say, we'll make that is certainly one of the themes in our communication plan. We'll make sure we issue that to every school, so every school's armed with that information.
Thank you. Ming, you have a question?
Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, no question really, just to add to what Jonathan said about increasing parental confidence. In order to do that, we need to understand better what parents think about the current provision support we provide collectively from health, from local authority, from school. Although at the moment we have same voice surveys, but same voice to have a particular set of membership. So DFE would like us to carry out a survey, what they call DBV survey, deliver best value surveys. We are designing a survey which would like school leader support to encourage your parent with SEN children, either SEN support or EHC with the EHCP to complete a survey and send back to us. The data will be used by local authority as well as the DFE, either the national things. That will be useful for us to capture broader feedback from parent and carer. So that the development policy you will hear from us in the next 1 or 2 days. School leader will hear from us in the next 1 or 2 days about it. So a very simple question being designed by DFE, and we only amend 1 or 2 questions. The reason we want to use DFE's question because they want to nationally, they want to analyze the feedback as well. Just to share with you that development, that's part of our evidence gathering to develop measure to increase parental confidence. Only by knowing better what they feel, we can address their confidence better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ming. Any further questions for Jonathan? And I think we're back to you, Catherine, for the next section, which is the draft 2024-25 schools block budget.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we were hoping to have up-to-date pupil census figures so that we could put together some sort of indicative budget for schools, but we still haven't had all the final numbers through yet. So the table that I'm just showing here just shows an updated pupil numbers that is based on a provisional census from the data team. There's lots of gaps in it because unfortunately there's some academies that don't buy into our service, the data service. So and they hadn't supplied the numbers because they just do it direct with the DFE. So we used their numbers that they'd given us in September. So obviously they're probably going to be a bit out of date, but this is the best information that we have available at the time. So you can see like the secondary numbers have gone up from last year and the primary have gone down slightly, but this is what we're expecting our income to be coming in for next year. So when we get the final figures, hopefully next Friday, fingers crossed, from the DFE, they'll tell us our final allocation for all the blocks and our provisional allocation for early years, and also send us through the new tool with all the pupil data on it. So once we get that through, we're going to work on that the week before Christmas, get indicative budgets out to schools, and also meet with Task and Finish Group in the new year as well, just to go through everything to then bring hopefully the final budgets through to get signed off in January so we can submit that to the SFA. But we want to send something out to schools over Christmas so that you can comment on that in the new year when you come back to school in the new year, so you can see what your figures are likely to be from April next year or September for academies. Yeah, so as I said earlier, that the growth fund, where they've changed the way that they're giving us our income for growth, and they've given us a tool to work it out. But again, we've just used those provisional pupil census figures, so that's sort of key to that so much. So many of our calculations, but at the minute using their tool, it looks like we're getting in 1.1 income for growth, but I think we're going to need about 1.6. So we're going to be, there's a bit of a disconnect there, but we'll see what actually physically comes in at the end of next week. And disapplication requests, we've submitted the one for the All Through School, and that they came back a couple of weeks ago to say that that's been approved, so that's good. So that'll be included in our final budget. And we also, because of the transfer, the block transfer was at 0.5%, not 1%, we don't have to send a disapplication request in for that. So that's just going to be, again, we're going to just do that in our final budget. Yeah, so that's just saying final steps. As I just said earlier, we'll just be sending everything out over Christmas. If schools could comment in the new year as soon as they've seen that, and then we can move forward with the final budget to get approved in January.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. What's the mechanism for sending that information out to schools? Does it just go to the normal Finance Act email addresses or the heads?
Yes, we send it to both of those email addresses.
Okay, so the academies will pick that up as well? Yes,
absolutely, yeah.
Looking forward to the January meeting then, when we get that detail of the individual school level, because I know that's the bit that everyone dives on that paper when it arrives and looks at their individual school.
I know.
Any questions for Catherine on that 24-25 budget information? Okay, thank you. You said that the Task and Finish group hadn't met to discuss that. Are they meeting in January?
Yeah, we'll set that up and to meet as soon as we come back, so we can just look at everything that we've done over Christmas. Yeah, so let's get that set up with Darren and the team.
Okay, thank you. Can we move on then to agenda item 18, which is the proposed de-delegated budget? And I think, Luciana, I believe we have to maintain schools. We need to vote on this once Catherine's taking us through the paper.
Yeah, so we had a Task and Finish groups to look at all the de-delegated budgets a couple of years ago, and we was recommended to just keep the supply, the maternity cover basically. So we pay for maintained schools, maternity, paternity, union duties and jury service cover. And we also still have that 55,000 that's kept in contingency reserve as well. Looking at the spend that's happened in the past 4 years over, for all of the maintained schools and taking into account schools that are converted to academy, we've come up with a new rate for next year of £27.53 per pupil. So obviously, depending on how many pupils you've got on census, October 23 census will be what you're going to get charged. It was £27.06 this year, so I think it takes into account that sort of teachers' pay increase and things as well. So we just need to vote on that if schools are still happy with that. Contingency wise, we've not taken any, included that in the past couple of years' budgets, but it's maybe something to think about maybe going forward, that we start to do that again, and that could possibly be a mechanism for helping schools in financial difficulty. So that's just something to think about going forward. But yes, if we could vote on keeping the maternity cover de-delegation and at £27.53 per pupil, that'd be brilliant.
Okay, I think we've just got just 4 people to vote. I'm not sure if all are on the call. Can I just have a yes or no, please, from you, Carol?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nikki? No, nothing from Nikki. And Amanda?
It's Chris Cunningham on behalf of Amanda, and that's yes.
Sorry, Chris, could you say that again?
Yeah, on behalf of Amanda, and it's yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the vote on that. So, Catherine, can I just ask about that contingency? So, will we be having discussions at the next couple of forum meetings about that?
Yeah, we can. Yes, we're trying to put together a whole policy around schools in financial difficulty and having problems setting their balanced budget. So it's all going to be all part of that. So yeah, we'll bring that as
part of the budget setting and the amount. Yes. So that will come back from schools to say I can't manage on that amount, and then we can start looking at the contingency. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we pick that up. That would be good. Thank you very much. Can we move on to the draft central school services block budget, please?
Yeah, it's me again.
Is that you again, Catherine?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Right, it's probably just easier if I go down to the table just to show. So we did the same thing last year at the December meeting and then got it finalised in January, because again, we're not going to find out what our final Central School Services block budget is until the end of next week when we get all the rest of our allocations. So we have a provisional amount based on last year's census of this 107,567. We got 1,039 this year. So as we know, our pupil numbers have increased slightly. We know that this is going to be going up. But if we split things in the same way that we've always done, we know this is just a contribution towards our statutory duties that we use centrally. We've assumed copyright licenses are going to go up by 3%. So we've just added that in there, but we've just put the difference just goes in that first line up here. So which is what we did last year. So we just ask schools to agree that this is what we would do going forward. And when it changes, when we know what our final allocation is in December, in the January meeting, we'll just put the difference into this line here. So it's just the whole total will just go across to the general fund centrally. But it's just a way to just show that how we've split it out. So the main things that change is just the licenses, as I said down there. So that will change when they actually tell us what our actual charge will be. And then we just suggest that any difference just gets put into this line here. So if everyone's happy with that, that's what we'll do going forward. And that just gets signed off in January.
Any comments on that central block budget and the mechanism Catherine's just discussed? If everyone's happy with that, Catherine, then we'll stick to the same rule that we did last year, and then we'll sign up in January once we've got the figures there.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, I think January, obviously, we're going to have a bit more information because we'll have all of these figures and we can talk about some of these things in a bit more detail about the different blocks as well. Mm-hmm. Jonathan, I think over to you now for inclusion funding. I know you talked about it briefly earlier on. Anything to talk about on inclusion funding, please?
With permission, I think it's best to defer it to the next meeting, only because it still remains in discussion with the group itself, and I don't think there's an urgency about resolving it. I must admit, I presumed it had been deferred to the next meeting. So, if with permission, can we defer that till next time? Because I think there still remains some room to go in terms of there's a proposal in discussion at the moment with the group itself, with the chair of the group and with the previous chair. So I think given that that's not fully resolved as yet, I think it's probably a bit premature to bring it here for sign off. So if we might defer that, I think it'd probably be best.
Okay, is there a date set for that meeting with the group?
The group are meeting later this week. I believe I need to liaise with Andy to make sure, but I believe it's later this week. So yes, it's that discussion's in hand.
So yeah, if that meeting is going to take place, if everyone's happy, we can have that as a fuller report at the next meeting in January. Any objections to that? Okay, let's do that, Jonathan, and then let's have that for the next meeting. Could I just slip an AOB item in here that before we look at the forward programme? There was a meeting last week with the local authority energy team discussing the use of solar PV and the costs and so on and so forth. And there's been an email trail between various parties prior to this meeting. I wonder if Carol and Liz would be able to lead us on this. Information that they picked up from that meeting and what it means in terms of the individual schools. Carol, are you going to start on this one for us?
I think so, yes. So just a quick summary. We were advised at the meeting that they're going to start charging us 17 pence per kilowatt hour for something that we currently get for nothing. We have been asking as schools since early this year for a breakdown of what that actually means, because our solar meters are not working, so I don't know how much solar we're generating, so I don't know what 17 pence per kilowatt hour looks like. We've been sent a contract to sign. We have a contract in place that we signed in 2012, but we were told that contract is no longer valid. I'd like to understand why. So I think basically what we would like is an answer to the question. We were told that this has been required by somebody It was described as somebody high up in Wokingham Borough Council. We'd quite like to know why that's been requested. We'd like to know where the proceeds are going to, the 17 pence per kilowatt hour. We'd like to understand why our current contracts are no longer valid, and we would also request from the energy team the promised forecasts of what that means to the schools. We would like it as soon as possible, but we definitely need it before we do the P9 budget monitoring. So it feels a little bit like a money grab from the schools.
Chris, so we've got some...
So it's more to get some answers to those questions.
Yeah, I concur with that, Deborah. We're in the exact same position. We've received a contract. I've refused to sign it. I've requested the energy team to have some form of dialogue with us to explain what's actually happening. We attempted to raise some questions in the meeting the other day, but didn't really receive much of an answer or any form of reassurance. So yeah, not entirely sure what is going on. We're in possibly a slightly better position than Carol almost. Our solar panels are generating power, and I can see the power. The school doesn't get any of it. Yeah, it's a mystery at the moment. So I do think that needs to be brought for them so we understand exactly what's going on.
I think as well, Chris and Carol, that contract actually stated that charges would be backdated to April 2023, which is why a lot of people, which I'm not sure schools could manage that out of their budgets to get that at this position in the year, to have to pay back that money back to the beginning of April. That's probably going to be quite significant.
Well, it could be, yeah, it's difficult to know because it could be that this is an offset of the costs that we're already paying. So we just don't know. That's the problem. We don't know what the financial implications, which puts schools in quite a difficult position. So, yeah.
I also think I have a contract here that we signed as a school in 2012. It says that the school will get the benefit of the generated electricity for the next 25 years, and the Wokingham Borough Council will get the feed-in tariff. And I'm now being told that contract's not worth the paper it's written on.
Keep hold of it, Carol. That's what I would suggest.
Don't worry, I have.
Did we have any clarity about how the calculations would be communicated to the schools as well, or will you just get an item appear on the WISER report?
We've been asking for a forecast of what the charges will be for some time, and nothing has been forthcoming. So we don't actually know what the impact is going to be on the school's bottom line. The contract that they've sent out as well also says that the 17 pence per kilowatt hour can be reviewed every year, and I assume it's not going to go down.
And as I recall in the contract, it wasn't just 17 pence. Was there a percentage charge as well, that it would always be lower than the kilowatt hour?
It would always be 30% lower than the standard tariff.
Yeah.
And the threat is that if we don't sign the contract, then we wouldn't get that 30% discount.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, I don't think anyone has signed that contract yet.
No.
But we're all waiting. I think our main issue is that we've asked for financial details and forecasts for forever, for the whole of this financial year at least. And even at the meeting, they said we'll send an email today and we'll reply, and I did, and we haven't had anything. So we have no information. I think that's the key thing.
Okay, Ming, I think you were next.
Thanks, Deborah. Yeah, this emerging matter for us. I'm sure our finance colleague and myself was not part of that meeting. And I think my suggestion is that we need to find out more. We find out internally. At the same time, it would be great help, Carol and Liz, that who you met, what information you've been sent, forwarded to me. And we follow this up, and probably we'll get back with a collective answer in January, probably in January when we meet. This is emerging. I think at least finance colleagues know better than me. I think it's something totally new to me. So we are going to talk to our legal team and our property. I think the legal team or our property and capital sort of department. It's something we need to find out more. It's very difficult to without knowing what is actually going on, to give you an answer now. Could you raise this? Otherwise, I think we can leave it we will leave it for too late. So if you have any information you want to forward, just send it to us. I'm sure Emma and I, we will follow this up with the relevant team once we know more.
Yeah, if you can copy us both in, and we'll escalate this internally and ensure we come back with a timely answer. Our proposal is to come back in the January Schools Forum, but I think someone mentioned P9 reporting. Is that too late?
I think some action we need to take before January. I think we need to meet the deadline.
I think, speaking on behalf of the academy schools, I know with the contracts we did not sign those and sent them back with changes that we required, and they've apparently been sent to the legal team, but we've heard nothing more on that. So that the energy team are aware that we wanted changes to the contract that would benefit all schools, not just for our individual schools. So that needs to be looked at as well, if we could. Darren, did you have a question?
I was just going to support what Carol and Liz and Chris had said about the contracts. I think it's disgraceful what's happened. Effectively sending contracts out to schools saying you've got to sign these when contracts are either not in place, schools don't know how the electricity is being used, or there are existing legacy contracts in place. I think it needs to be looked at urgently.
Yes, I think there's quite a few different legacy contracts across all of the schools in the borough. Depends upon when the solar PV was installed. I know there's different contracts for installations on the same school as well. So that needs to be reviewed as well. And some clarity about how the charging is going to work, whether it's an academy. I think it's harder for maintained schools as well, because you just suddenly get a charge appearing on your WISER report that maybe you've got no information to back it up. So we would need that clarity as well. So could we ask for a report definitely at the January meeting, but any information we could have before would really be gratefully received. Has anyone else got any comments on the energy and the solar PV? Any issues they've had at their particular schools? Shirley.
Mine is the same. So so there is more than this. It looks like pretty much all schools are the same as what have just been described. So mine are the same as well. So we've also refused to sign, and it was Ian Goff we spoke to directly and said we weren't signing. So I look forward to the report.
Thank you. Yes, I think we all look forward to that report. So Ming and Emma, if we can leave that with you to come back with some information, and Carol and Liz will send that information across to you as well. Thank you. Could we just slip back to the agenda now, the forward programme? Was there anything on the forward programme that anyone would like to discuss? Are we happy with all of the information on there and the dates that are set? Lucianne and I had a brief discussion before the meeting started today. I know these meetings work well via Teams. Is there any desire to move them to back to face-to-face meetings? Perhaps that's something we can discuss over the next couple of meetings. Maybe the winter time, it's probably easier doing them by Teams, but maybe it's something we look at as the year goes on. If anyone has any desire to move it to a face-to-face meeting, if you could let us know, please. Okay. Are there any other items for AOB? Can I just go through the list? I'll just go down the list that I've got here. Al?
Not from me, thanks.
Andy?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Chris?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Carol?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Karina?
Nothing from me, thank you, Deborah, and thank you for chairing, Deborah.
Thank you, Karina. Darren?
Nothing from me, Deborah, thank you.
Emma?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Ian? Sorry, Ian Thomas.
No, thank you, Deborah.
Ian Morgan.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Jen, welcome. Anything from you?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Jonathan?
No, nothing from me, thanks, Deborah.
Catherine, I think we've had all your bits, but anything else?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Liz?
Nothing from me, thank you, Deborah.
Okay, Ming?
Nothing from me, Deborah. Thank you for sharing.
Phil?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Sarah?
Just a plea from me for a date for the high needs funding task and finish group. If it could be before Christmas, so we've got it in the diary for January, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, seconded there, definitely. And Shirley?
No, thank you. Nothing from me. Thanks for sharing, Deborah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for what's turned out to be a fairly swift meeting, but I think we've got quite a few meaty reports to look at in our January meeting. So we'll have all the budget information, hopefully some feedback about the energy, and Jonathan some information on the DSG and inclusion funding as well. So I look forward to reading those reports before our meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time today. I know we're still a little way away, but everyone have a good Christmas break and New Year, and see you all again in January.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Deborah.